Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, Farmish pals. Welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. Today is May 6th, 2024. This is episode 277. Thank you so much for joining me here today. What is today's topic? Today we're going to talk about an important topic. It's a question that I get quite a bit in my email inbox. And we're going to talk about 5 ways to prep when you don't have a lot of money, or 5 ways to prep that don't really take any money. And I know that this is a topic that some folks might just brush it aside. Like the things that I'm going to talk about today aren't really prepping because it doesn't require placing an order on Amazon or filling your grocery cart to overflowing. But there are a lot of things that can help you be prepared for tough times that have zero to do with spending money. So the main topic is going to start off a little bit feisty because I start by explaining what I think is some maybe wrong thinking, in my opinion. So I start off a little bit feisty, but then I get into some actionable stuff that you can do. So that is coming up. But first, what's been happening on the Lifestead? The Lifestead has been busy. The weather has turned a little bit here, and so we are starting to get into all those projects. We are prepping the Ruth Stout garden, which is laying down a bunch of old hay or straw, anything like that, and growing your vegetables in that. And that is how we grow our potatoes and our onions. When I first heard about this, I was like, this don't work. There's no way this is going to work. You can't just put some hay down and then throw some onion sets or some seed potatoes down. You can't just throw that down and then put some hay over it and watch it grow. You guys, it works. This is how we have been able to grow potatoes and onions here because we have clay. So growing underneath the ground is pretty tricky. We would not get potatoes to grow. Our onions would not get big. Carrots were even a really big problem here. So Ruth Stout. Okay, so we've been prepping that because I have a bunch of seed potatoes I saved from last year. And they look like octopuses. Octopi? They look like octopi now because they have so many tentacles coming off of them. I posted a picture on Facebook the other day of this. It looks like octopus aliens in a tote. I need to plant these. And so we need to get that done. So we are getting that prep so we can make that ready. We've been spending a lot of time getting our rabbit area ready. We have rabbits coming very, very soon. We've been getting that rabbit area ready in our little barn. Shout out to my husband. Thank you so much for helping me. I plan a lot of projects and I'm a capable person, right? I know how to do things, but I definitely need another person there to sometimes do the things that I thought I could do myself. Do you know what I'm saying? It's great to be a strong, independent woman and try to do things yourself, but it's also important to admit when you can't do it yourself and you don't know what you're doing, or you maybe want someone else's opinion about how this would maybe be done better. So shout out to my husband for basically making the entire thing work. So yay. Cheers to you. We've been cleaning up the yard. So much stuff got forgotten and ignored last year when no one was home, when I was working full time, when my husband was kind of working the opposite days as me and the opposite shift as me. And so now we're kind of backtracking a little bit on the farm in order to try and move forward productively. So here's the crazy thing. We were going around the farm and we were finding all these like trees that had come up. I think most of them are box elders. Some of them are maple. A lot of them are box elders, though, because that's mostly what we have around the farm. And so these trees had sprouted up over the last year or two in places they shouldn't be in the farmyard, and they've just been ignored. And so over this weekend, we decided we were going to dig those up and put them somewhere they need to be. And so we moved a bunch of trees to kind of the border between our field and the neighbor's field. You might as well use the trees that already grew in your yard instead of spending money on trees, right? I'm sure I forgot 47 different things that are happening on the Lifestead right now. We have jumped into the time where it's just, we're not doing anything, and now, oh my gosh, we're doing all the thing. I did put up a video last week. I put up a couple videos last week on YouTube, but one of them was, it was on gardening in Zone 4A and how you feel like you hit the ground running and you're already behind and you just don't have as much time as the majority of the rest of the states. And so it feels like mid-May to mid-September is just this insane time to attempt gardening and then everything else that you want to do on the homestead too. It feels like there's less time for error because you don't have as long of a growing season as most of the rest of the country. So yeah, that's what we are entering. So lots of stuff going on, lots of craziness, but I love it. I love it so much. I do want to give you a heads up. I did make a new t-shirt. A few years ago, I had some t-shirts go up for sale. They said Farmish Life, Best Life, and a bunch of people bought those. And I bought a bunch of them so I could have t-shirts of my own stuff to wear around. Well, it's been a few years and my t-shirts are all worn out and I wanted to get new t-shirts. And so I made new t-shirts, and these new ones say, "Not fancy, just Farmish," which if you subscribe to my Farmish Papers newsletter, you will know that is the little sticker that you got with your first newsletter that you received. So I've put that on a shirt. I ordered a few shirts just to check sizing and to see how it looks. And so when those arrive, I will try them on. I will see what I think. And then I will let you know that they're all for sale. So that's just a heads up for you. So if you want to fill your closet with a couple Farmish things, you'll be able to do that. The last thing that I want to say is a very special shout out to Carter. Happy birthday. Thank you so much for letting us celebrate with you. That was super, super fun to spend Sunday with you. So happy birthday, Carter. All right, let's head over to the main topic and talk about 5 ways to prep when you have no money. So today we're talking about something that I get questions about pretty often, especially when things get a little wonky in the world. And people will ask me a lot about prepping, but today's topic that I'm going to focus on is when people say, "Amy, I don't have a lot of money and I want to prep and I want to prepare and I want to be ready for stuff, but I really don't have enough money to be doing all the stuff that people say I need to be doing in order to prepare. So Amy, I'm on a fixed income," or "Amy, I'm drowning in debt." And I've even had some people say, "How dare you talk about this because you're speaking from a place of privilege, Amy," things like that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, if this is something that you're feeling, I don't have a lot of money and I'm trying to prep and I'm trying to do the right thing, but I can't afford to do that. I want you, number one, to go listen to episode 270 of the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, because in that episode, I talked about reframing what prepping is. And something else I also think we need to reframe is what the phrase "going through tough times" means. Because listen to me, if you are in the middle of tough times right now, and a lot of people are, you are getting through tough times. That's what you're doing right now. You are living that, right? Don't worry about what extra cool prepper or extra cool homesteader extraordinaire is doing or what they're talking about. If you are going through tough times right now, you're doing it. Okay? You're living it. And someday you're going to be able to tell your story. I don't know what people think going through tough times is supposed to look like, but when I have people who email me with all these, "Yeah, but I can't work on prepping because this," or "Yeah, that all sounds really great, but," I find that their frustration is that they are currently in the middle of tough times and they think they're supposed to be doing something different. Or they think it's supposed to look different. Sometimes things suck, sometimes things are hard, and sometimes you are in the valley, and what you do is you keep walking, okay? If you are going through tough times right now, which a lot of people are, your job is to get through tough times, okay? And while you're going through these tough times, take notes. So while you're at it, take notes while you're at it. So when you get through this rough patch, you know what would have made it better and what really didn't matter. So when you have a little breathing space and you can focus on preparing or prepping, you know the best way to go at that for you. Okay? Sometimes we're just in the middle of tough times and that's what it is. Okay? Maybe storing up a bunch of supplies isn't in the cards for you right now because it does cost money to buy extra. And I posted about this on social media one time. I said, people will say, if you want to prep, here's an easy way you could do it. When you go to the grocery store, just buy one extra of everything that's on your list. Okay? I posted this on social media, and it started one of those uproars where people took this into some crazy math thing. Okay, we had some people that were like, I can't even afford to buy the stuff that's on my list. Why would I buy one extra of the things? And then I had other people who were saying, no, you don't buy one extra. You go shop at a restaurant supply store or a membership store like Costco or Sam's Club or things like that, because then you're going to get a better deal. And it just turned into this whole thing. All I was saying is, I don't care where you're shopping. I don't care what's on your list. You're going to spend more to buy more than the one item you plan to buy. Okay? I don't care if you're buying a 50-pound bag of flour. If you're going to go in and buy 2 50-pound bags of flour, that's going to cost you twice as much. But every little bit helps. And if the only thing that you do next time you're at the grocery store is buy an extra bag of rice, that's something. Okay? Are you on par with super awesome prepper who has 95 extra bags of everything that they could ever need? No. But you've got one extra thing, and that's better than no extra things. Okay? So if you're in a really rough spot, next week, you know what? Buy an extra box of Band-Aids. That's all the extra you buy. Or you buy an extra bag of cat food, and that's all that you buy. Just one thing extra. Maybe not one of everything on your list extra, but maybe just one thing extra. Okay? And maybe that doesn't work for you either, and we're going to get to other things you can do. But this all takes time. Some people who are out there talking about prepping, who have a bunch of stuff stored up and they've changed their whole property and they got this whole thing going on, they're like super awesome prepper extraordinaire. They have been working at this a really long time. You cannot come in and look at what they have and say, I want that, and I have 14 cents to my name. But hey, I want that. Okay? If you have a lot of extra money, it's going to take you less time to do this. If you don't have a lot of extra money, it's going to take you more time. I don't know how to change that. That's how math works. But what I do know is that you starting to build your supplies the next time you go to the grocery store, even if it's just one box of pasta extra, starting the next time you go is better than lamenting that you can't do it today and you never get started because you're mad at your financial situation. I find very often that people ask questions and they want magical answers. For instance, I have $5 in my pocket and I want to do this thing that costs $50. Guess what? You can't at this moment do that thing that costs $50 because you only have $5, right? That's what we'd tell our kids. You don't have enough money to do that. You can't do that right now, right? And sometimes we need to be okay with saying that to other adults and hearing that as adults. Sometimes you just can't do it right now. However, having said that, you might not have enough money to prep in the way that you're thinking, but let's dig into what you think you need for what you think you're preparing for, okay? What are you prepping for? I want you to stop thinking about the zombie apocalypse, okay? Stop. Just knock that off. Stop thinking about, oh my God, the world is going to end and I need to be able to live for a year on everything I can fit in a backpack. Like, you guys, there's some crazy stuff people talk about out there, but here's what I want you to think about. Could you make it, let's say, 3 days of not being able to get to the store because there's a weather situation, or you have a financial oops, or there's some kind of civil emergency? Could you make it 3 days of not being able to leave your house? Could you do that? Think about that. Could you do it? What would that entail? Could you make it a week? Could you make it a month? Oh, wait, in order to know the answers to those questions and whether or not you have enough, you'd have to know how much you normally use in that time period. You guys, this is not about randomly filling your basement with totes of rice and toothpaste and wheat berries and hydrogen peroxide. This is about getting you through a rough patch. That's what we're going to start with. So figure out what you would need. Okay, so what are you prepping for? Think of a specific situation. What do you need for that? If you ask most people who do any prepping or consider themselves to do prepping, if you ask them what situations they've been through that caused them to actually dig into their preps, it's usually something like, a job loss or a health issue or a financial oops or a weather-related issue. It's not zombies. It's not civil unrest. It's not something real exciting that makes a movie. Many preppers will tell you that they're just living in a way that they're cycling through everything, and it's nice to not have to go to the store because they have extra. The most recent event that my husband and I had to kind of dip into our extra was someone hacked our bank account right before Christmas and pretty much drained it. And I talked about that a few episodes ago. I can't remember. It was called Prepping for Less Than the Apocalypse, I think. I can't think of the number right now, but go back and find that. A lot of the ways that we reach into the preps that we have is just normal stuff. It's not exciting. It's stuff that comes up and you're like, oh, okay, I could deal with that easier because I had a little extra stored, or I had a little extra money set aside, or I had a little extra whatever, okay? I want you to find me someone who has prepared for a situation where they wouldn't have access to stuff for 3 months, 6 months, a year. And I want you to find a person who has actually encountered that situation, okay? And I'm not talking about, we decided we're going to live in a van and we're going to travel the world, and so now I need to have enough money to not work for a year, and I need to have enough supplies for this certain amount of time because I don't know when the next time is I'm going to get to a store that has what I need. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, oh my God, the world is going to end and I need to be prepared with enough rice and beans and ammo to get me through. I want to talk to the person who was actually prepared for that situation, has then encountered that situation, and survived that situation because of their preps. Because here's the thing. If that person exists, they probably aren't in America. And the person who has had to actually survive the end of their world, like we talk about in the exciting prepping community, is probably listening to our talks about prepping and thinking we're a bunch of privileged jerks, whining about our first world problems that stem from this almost like pornographic obsession with the zombie apocalypse and, you know, the government just doing all these terrible things and now massive civil unrest and the end of the world and, oh my gosh, all this stuff, right? There are people in other parts of the world who are dealing with stuff every day that we what if about. And thank you to my listener who brought that up to me. That was a lot of good stuff to think about. Okay, so now we're getting to some stuff we can work with here. What do we do? What are 5 ways to prep when you don't have a lot of money? Okay. Number 1, I want you to take stock of your needs and your resources. Okay, so take stock of what you already have on hand and then look for the areas where you might need to beef things up a little bit, okay? That's the first thing you should do. Figure out what you need, figure out what you have, okay? Figure out what you need for a realistic situation that might actually happen in your life, and then figure out what you have to deal with that. That's the first thing you should do. That doesn't cost any money. We're just figuring stuff out. It doesn't cost any money. Number 2, look into DIY and repurposing, okay? I want you to get creative and repurpose the items you already have so they can be used for your prepping, okay? So you want to store water. What containers do you already have that you can store water in? You want to make sure you are warm if the power goes out. What blankets do you already have? Like, this does not have to be a thing where we go out and buy a million things that are a super specific thing because somebody said this is a thing you got to have, okay? What tools do you already have that will help you do repairs on something that breaks? That doesn't really cost any money. We're DIYing and we're repurposing, trying to do that as frugally as possible. Number 3, the number 3 way that we can prep if we don't have a lot of money is building skills, reading books, talking to people. The internet is your friend. The library is your friend. Develop the skills that are valuable as a prepper. Gardening, foraging, or forging, cooking from scratch, first aid, self-defense. Because building these skills can sometimes be more valuable than spending money on all this super expensive gear or supplies that people say that you need. I do not know how it was that prepping for a tough situation became about buying stuff. When did that happen? You're going to tell me that great-great-grandma survived whatever she went through because her basement was stacked to the ceiling with everything she could possibly ever need? Come on. It was not. Great-great-grandma knew how to do stuff. And skills do not have to be complicated. It can be something like learning about substitutions. Can you make that recipe with water instead of milk? What can you use in place of butter or olive oil? Many of us could last a lot longer through an unforeseen upset in our supply chain, either because we can't get to the store or because the food can't get to the store. We would last a lot longer if we knew how to use everything we already have in our house down to the very last possibility. And sometimes that means learning to use what you have in different ways. And I don't know what you think about that, but I think that's a skill because there are people out there that don't know how to do that. And it doesn't cost any money to build skills if you're doing it the right way. The library, the internet, is not going to cost you any money. You don't have to take a $1,000 class to learn how to do something, okay? Talk to people, learn stuff. Which brings me to the next point, number 4, I think we're on. Find your community. Let's say there's a weather disaster. Let's say there's a civil disaster, whatever you want to talk about. Who's going to check on you? What person, real life, flesh and blood, in-person human being is going to check to make sure that you're okay and find out if you need help? And then give you help if you need it. Because if you don't have an answer for that, that's an issue. And you need to start building your community. Doesn't have to be huge, but you need to have a community. You need to have connections. You need to have your people. And take advantage of community resources and support networks that make sense to your prepping efforts. But be careful because there's prepper groups out there, there's community gardens, there's neighborhood associations, there's all these things where you can share knowledge and resources and all of that. But I want you to join those groups or check those groups out now because let me tell you something, not every local prepper or homesteader or self-sufficiency group is a group you want to be a part of. Not every group is productive. Just because they say they're a prepper group doesn't mean they're a prepper group. It may be a group that wants to spend 80% of their time complaining about politics and 20% of their time drinking. Ask me how I know this. Dig into your community now so you can figure out what your community actually is and who those people are, because these are the people who will help each other. These are the people you're going to barter with and trade with and learn with and get through stuff with. Number 5 is get yourself to a good place mentally. You can have a property full of stuff and all the preps in the world, but if you don't have the mental capacity to deal with stress, that's an issue. You know, we want there to be a checklist, okay? A long checklist that we put lots of check marks in so we know that we're awesome and we're more prepared and we've got all this down and we're more able and more whatever than someone else who doesn't have as many check marks in this prepping checklist. But I'm telling you, not all the check marks even matter. And some of the check marks are there because someone wants to make money off of you. And the person who is super prepared or appears to be super prepared and can show me their basement full of stuff and how badass their property is might cry like a little 2-year-old when things go sideways. You can have all the materials in the world, but if you can't mentally deal with a tough time, you are worthless to yourself and anyone around you. So don't write this one off. It's a really big deal. Get yourself to a good place mentally. And I don't know that costs money. You might have to treat yourself to a nice coffee. I don't know. But focus on that, not what you're going to buy on Amazon. Get yourself to a good place mentally, which maybe you can go back to number 4 and use your community to help you get to that place. Now, I know I got a little fired up in this one, but I have been asked so many times about, I don't have enough money to whatever with prepping. And I get it, okay? I get it. I totally get it. But I really, really want people to think past all of that, because being prepared for an ish situation is not just about how many MREs you were able to buy last week. You guys, we've got farmers figuring out how to run farms on baling twine and duct tape and WD-40. So don't tell me that prepping is all about how much stuff you can buy and store up. If you don't have the money to prep in the mainstream way, which that's kind of weird to say, the mainstream prepper way, but you know what I mean, right? If you don't have money to prep in that way, then you figure out a workaround. And hopefully this episode has given you at least a little bit to think about to get you working towards being prepared in a different way. Or maybe it's given you some information. So when somebody comes to you and says, I can't prep because I don't have enough money to do all the things the cool preppers are doing, you can direct them to this episode, or maybe just pull this information out and have a great conversation with them. So I hope this is helpful to you guys. I hope that you realize that in a time when people are struggling with the money, like so many people are struggling with money, there are still some things that you can do to be prepared, and they are just as important as the stuff that you're going to try and buy. No lie, you guys. All right, have a great week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com, find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media, or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.